The sun slipped low over the Texas backroads as Darius Cole rolled the garage door down on his motorcycle shop. Heat still clung to the tools and the concrete, but the day's noise was done. He wiped grease from his hands and glanced at the highway where the last job had ended. A stranded rider, with a busted belt and a worried look. Darius had fixed it in 20 minutes, calm as a surgeon. When the man noticed the faded winged skull tattoo on Darius's forearm, he gave a quiet nod. The kind men give when they know a story, but won't ask to hear it. Darius locked the shop and touched the door twice out of habit. "Stay closed," he murmured, half prayer, half muscle memory. The sign read Coal Cycles in sun-bleached paint. It was small, neat, and clean. So was the life he'd built inside it. At home, Maya met him with a soft smile and the smell of garlic in the pan. She moved around the kitchen like she was writing a song with her hands. Stir, taste, laugh, repeat. "You're late," she teased. "Again." "Broken belt on a lonely road," he said, kissing her cheek. "I couldn't leave him there." "You couldn't leave a screwdriver alone either," she said, handing him a towel. "Wash up. Dinner's almost ready." Jaden popped in from the living room, tall and restless, a grin already forming. "Dad, I found something in the old toolbox. A patch, with wings and a skull. It's old," Darius said gently, "and it stays in the box." Jaden's eyes flashed with curiosity, then care. "Okay," he lowered his voice. "I just wanted to know who you were before you were Dad." Darius looked at him for a long beat, the kind of look that carries love and warning at once. "I was looking for a family," he said. "I found one. It wasn't the right kind." Maya set plates on the table and slid a hand across Darius's back as he sat. "He found us." They ate with the windows open to the evening breeze. Jaden talked about school, about a teacher who kept calling him Jason like his real name was too much work. Maya rolled her eyes. "I'll email her again." "Don't," Darius said, calm but firm. "Let me call tomorrow. Names matter. We'll fix it quiet." Jaden leaned in, hopeful, needing something solid. "Coach wants me to try out at running back." "Use your eyes before your legs," Darius said. "See the field. Think before you move. It's how you make it to the end zone and go home without a limp." Maya lifted her glass. "To no limps," they laughed. It was an easy sound, the kind that fills a small house with a big life. After dinner, Darius washed dishes while Maya packed a lunch for her night shift at the clinic. "Old Mr. Harlan is back in," she said. "He'll ask me if I really know how to draw blood at least 3 times. Tell him you learned on your husband," Darius said. "He'll stop asking." She bumped him with her hip. "He'll ask more." On the drive to drop Maya at work, the road stretched straight and quiet. Mesquite shadows laid long across the shoulder. A county cruiser turned out from a side street and fell in behind them. No siren, no reason, just there. Darius checked the mirror once, then kept his eyes forward. Maya noticed the change in his jaw. "Don't tighten," she said softly. "Breathe." "I am," he said. He tapped the steering wheel in a slow pattern, the old count he used to steady his heart. 8 in, hold, 8 out. The cruiser followed for 2 miles, then flashed its blues once, just a blink, before peeling away at the next turn. Jaden twisted in the back seat to watch it go. "What was that?" "Nothing," Darius said. Maya looked at him. "Nothing has a long tail tonight." He walked her into the clinic lobby and squeezed her hands. "Text me if your shift runs late. I'll be right outside at sunrise. Promise?" she asked. "Always." Driving home with Jaden, the town felt small and watchful. A couple in a pickup glanced over, then looked away fast like they'd been caught staring. Teenage boy riding a bike lifted his chin to Jaden with an "I see you" look that wasn't unfriendly, but wasn't safe either. Darius kept the truck steady at the limit and stopped early at every sign. He knew how peace could turn into a target. He also knew how to make it home by choosing not to take the bait. Back at the house, Jaden dragged his backpack to the table. "I'm finishing that history essay," he said. "Mr. Langford said it needs less opinion, more facts. Facts make people mad when they were happy with myths," Darius said, setting 2 mugs on the counter. "Write it clean. Make it hard to argue with." Jaden grinned. "Like you. I'm not a paper," Darius said. "I'm a toolbox." They worked in companionable quiet. Jaden typing, Darius paying bills, the old wall clock counting steady time. When Jaden's phone buzzed with a group chat ding, He muted it without looking. Kids at school said Briggs has a new deputy, Malone. He posts videos with the sheriff, like law and order stuff. Don't follow him, Darius said. Don't feed him. Don't joke about him. Be invisible until you can't be, and when you can't, be undeniable. Jaden nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. You think they're looking at us? They're looking at everyone, Darius said. We're just easier to see. Wind brushed the porch light and sent a warm glow across the living room. Darius rose to check the deadbolt, then paused and glanced at the photo wall. Maya in scrubs holding a newborn whose mama couldn't stop crying. Jaden in a wrinkled choir shirt. Darius at the shop opening, hands still stained with the grease that had bought the banner behind him. He touched the frame the way a man touches a compass. Dad, Jaden asked, if someone pushes you, how do you not push back? You learn the difference between a push and a trap, Darius said. A push tries to move you. A trap tries to make you move yourself. Jaden sat with that for a breath. So what do? You hold your ground, Darius answered. And you make them prove they know the rules. A message buzzed on Darius's phone. Maya sending a selfie from the clinic break room. Tired smile, peace sign. Behave, my boys, the text read. House is fragile. Darius sent back a heart and 3 words, house is guarded. Later, after Jaden had brushed his teeth and drifted toward sleep, Darius stepped out to the porch and listened to the town breathe. Crickets, a dog barked 2 streets over. Somewhere a truck door slammed. Somewhere a laugh rose and fell. He let the air cool the last heat in his chest and rolled up his sleeve. The ink on his arm had faded to a memory, but memories had sharp edges when you ran your thumb against them. He spoke into the dark without raising his voice. I'm not who I was. I'm also not who you think. When he went back inside, he slid the old leather vest, wrapped in a towel, tucked deep in a toolbox, another inch out of sight. Not because he was afraid of it, because he respected what it could wake up. He checked the locks again, then cracked Jaden's door. Lights out, he whispered. Night, Dad, Jaden mumbled. You think Mom's okay? She's more than okay, Darius said. She's making other people okay. He lay down with the porch light still burning, and the quiet sitting heavy but not unkind. Sleep took him in careful stages. Somewhere between drifting and dreaming, a thought rose like a warning buoy in dark water. The circle had tightened. He didn't know when or how, but it had. And when it did, trouble didn't knock. He breathed out slow and told himself the truth he'd built his life on. I don't start fights, he said into the room. I finish them. Morning would come fast. And with it, something that looked small enough to ignore. A stop sign, a question asked twice, a smile with a hook in it. He didn't know the shape yet. He just knew the feeling. The road was about to tilt. The next morning, the air carried that thick, heavy stillness that comes before something goes wrong. Maya had already left for her shift at the clinic, and Darius was fixing a carburetor at the shop when his phone buzzed. It was a text from Jaden. Mom got pulled over. We're fine, I think, Darius frowned. He wiped his hands on a rag and typed back, where? No answer. He called, no response. His chest tightened. That old instinct, the one he'd buried deep, started rising like smoke in his lungs. He grabbed his jacket and keys, locking up the shop without another thought. Down the highway, 2 police cruisers were parked behind Maya's SUV. The red and blue lights flashed in lazy circles, but the energy wasn't lazy. Sheriff Briggs stood with his hands on his belt, smirking like a man enjoying the performance. Beside him, Deputy Malone leaned against the hood, one hand resting too close to his holster. Maya was standing outside the car, her shoulders straight but trembling. Jaden sat in the passenger seat, phone in his hand, recording quietly. Darius pulled over, heart pounding, and stepped out slowly. Everything all right here? He asked, voice low and even. Briggs turned, his smile sharp and tight. Depends who's asking. I'm her husband, Darius said. She texted me. Well then, maybe you can tell her what a stop sign looks like, Briggs said, his tone lazy but cold. We've got laws here, Mr. Cole. She blew right through one. That's not true, Maya said, her voice trembling but clear. There wasn't even another car on the road. Briggs ignored her, his eyes fixed on Darius. You the one runs that little shop out on County Road 7? Darius nodded slowly. That's right. Must be nice, Briggs said. Running a business out here. Quiet place, honest folks. Shame when outsiders bring city habits into it. Darius felt his jaw tighten, but he stayed still. You finished, Sheriff? Briggs's smile widened. Not quite. Mind showing me some ID? Am I under suspicion? Darius asked calmly. Malone chuckled. Oh, you've got that lawyer talk, huh? Briggs stepped closer. I asked for ID, that means you show it. Darius took a slow breath and reached into his pocket, careful, deliberate. You don't need to reach for your gun, he said evenly. I'm not a threat. Briggs's smirk faltered for a second, but his voice stayed mocking. We'll be the judge of that. He took the license, turning it over in his hand like it meant something more than paper. Darius Cole, he read aloud. Interesting name. You any relation to the biker trash that used to roll through Dallas back in the day? The air went still. Darius looked him dead in the eye. I don't answer to rumors, but Jaden, young and angry, couldn't hold it in. He's a vet, he blurted out. He fixed bikes for the Angels a long time ago, but he left that behind. Briggs's grin turned cruel. Oh, now that's a story. He looked back at Darius. So you used to ride with them, huh? Guess that explains the attitude. Darius's voice dropped low, steady as thunder rolling over the horizon. That patch doesn't mean what you think it means. And this conversation's over. Over? Briggs said, stepping forward, eyes glinting. Nothing's over until I say it is. For a long moment, nobody moved. The only sound was the soft hum of cicadas in the heat. Then Darius spoke again, quieter but sharper. I know exactly how you do things, Sheriff. Briggs's smirk faltered. Is that supposed to be a threat? No, Darius said. It's a warning. Malone laughed nervously, but there was something uncertain in his voice now. Come on, Sheriff, maybe we let them go. It's just a stop sign. Briggs turned to him sharply. You questioning me? Maya stepped forward, voice shaking but firm. Please just let us go home. Briggs looked at her, at Darius, then at the camera in Jaden's hand. His nostrils flared. Fine, he said. You folks have a good day now. And Mr. Cole? He leaned in, his voice dropping to a drawl. You keep your family on a short leash. Wouldn't want any more. Misunderstandings. Darius didn't move. He just stared back until Briggs finally looked away. Then slowly, he helped Maya back into the car and waited for Jaden to stop shaking before they drove off. No one spoke the entire way home. The only sound was the steady hum of the engine and the rasp of Darius's breath. Maya stared out the window, eyes wet, while Jaden's hands clenched tight around his phone. When they finally pulled into the driveway, Maya turned to her husband, her voice barely a whisper. Please, she said, don't let this change you. Darius looked at her, the muscles in his jaw tightening. It already did. He stepped out of the car and looked toward the horizon. The sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky with blood-orange streaks. Somewhere a siren wailed in the distance, faint but mocking. He didn't say another word. He just stood there, staring down the road until the light faded, the promise of peace fading with it. Inside, Jaden uploaded the video to a hidden folder. Maya sat quietly at the table, her fingers trembling as she traced the rim of her coffee mug. And Darius, alone in the workshop, opened an old toolbox in the corner. Inside, wrapped in an oil-stained rag, lay his old leather vest, the faded skull and wings still visible beneath years of dust. He didn't touch it. Not yet, but he didn't close the box either. He just looked at it and whispered, You tried peace. They want a reminder. And in that moment, the man he'd fought to bury began to breathe again, not out of rage, but out of necessity. The road had drawn its line, and Darius Cole was done pretending not to see it. The next few days unfolded like a slow unraveling, each one darker than the last. What had begun as a single traffic stop turned into whispers, stares, and a silence that followed Darius wherever he went. He opened the shop every morning, just like always, but the customers stopped coming. Men who once trusted him with their bikes now drove past without waving. A few who did stop looked uneasy, as if standing too close might stain them. Word had spread, not the truth, but the version that people in small towns liked better. Guy used to run with gangs, someone said at the diner. He's got anger issues, another whispered. Should have stayed in the city. By the third day, Darius found a letter taped to the door. It wasn't signed, just one sentence written in black marker. You don't belong here. He tore it down without a word, threw it in the trash, and swept the floor as if that could erase the insult. but it stayed with him. Every scrape of the broom reminded him how thin his peace had become. That night, he sat at the dinner table staring at his untouched food. Maya tried to fill the silence. Maybe it'll blow over. Small towns forget fast, he shook his head. They don't forget. They wait. Jaden glanced between them, trying to make sense of it all. Dad, why do they hate us so much? You fix their cars. Mom helps their families at the clinic. What did we do? Darius looked at his son, his expression steady but tired. We didn't do anything. Sometimes hate doesn't need a reason. It just needs a direction. Maya reached for his hand. Don't do this again, Darius. Don't go dark on me. He hesitated before answering. You think I can fix this with a smile? They saw what they wanted to see before I even opened my mouth. She squeezed his hand harder. You can't fight everyone. You're not that man anymore. He looked at her, eyes flickering with something heavy and unspoken. I wasn't then, he said quietly. I just had fewer choices. Later that week, the first real blow came. Darius arrived at the shop one morning to find the garage door pried open. Tools scattered. Oil spilled across the floor. On the wall, someone had spray-painted in thick red letters, "Angels don't fly here." He stood there for a long time, jaw clenched, eyes tracing the words until they blurred. Then he went to the corner, grabbed a rag, and began to clean. No shouting, no phone call, just steady, methodical silence, the kind that burns hotter than rage. When Jaden came by after school and saw the mess, he froze. Dad, who did this? Doesn't matter, Darius said, wiping the last streak of paint. It matters to me, Jaden said, his voice breaking. They think we're weak. Darius dropped the rag, turned to his son, and met his eyes. Strength isn't about noise. It's about control. If I lose that, I lose everything. But they'll keep coming. Jaden shouted, I know. His tone softened. That's why you keep standing. Quiet doesn't mean powerless. That night, after everyone was asleep, Darius went back to the garage. The air smelled like gasoline and anger. He pulled open a drawer and took out the old leather vest. The skull and wings emblem was faded, the edges frayed. It wasn't a symbol of pride anymore. It was a reminder of who he used to be. The man who led without fear. The man people didn't mess with. He sat in the dark, the vest draped over his knees. His reflection stared back at him in the dusty window. The same man. Just older, slower, but still dangerous when pushed. He whispered into the quiet. You promised her you'd never be that man again. But the silence had its own reply. How long do you think peace can protect you? He clenched the vest in his fists and forced himself to breathe. 1, 2, 3. Old drills, old discipline. The same ones that had saved his life a dozen times before. The next morning, 2 uniformed officers pulled up outside the shop. Darius wiped his hands on a towel and stepped out to meet them. You Darius Cole? One asked, pretending not to already know. I am. Shop licenses being reviewed, the other said. Routine inspection, Darius frowned. Funny, that inspection happened last month. The first officer smirked. Guess they didn't like what they found. They handed him a paper and walked off, leaving the words temporarily suspended stamped across his livelihood. He stood in the doorway, the wind lifting the corners of the notice. Behind him, the shop was silent, the tools still, the bikes untouched. It hit him then that this wasn't random. It was strategy. They weren't trying to scare him anymore. They were trying to erase him. That night, Maya found him sitting on the porch staring into nothing. Talk to me, she said gently. He didn't look up. They're closing in, Maya, little by little. One lie at a time. You can't go back, she said softly. Promise me you won't. He turned to her then, and there was something sharp in his voice. You think I want to? You think I like waking up every morning wondering if today's the day they push too far? She flinched but didn't move away. Then what do we do? He took her hand and looked at her the way soldiers look at home, as both anchor and wound. We hold the line, he said quietly, until I can find another way. Later, when the house was dark, he sat alone in the garage again, staring at the vest hanging from a hook. He didn't put it on, but he didn't hide it either, because deep down, he knew what the silence meant. It wasn't peace anymore. It was the calm before the storm. The storm began the way storms often do, not with thunder, but with a knock at the door. Darius had been sitting in his workshop late one evening. fixing a carburetor that didn't really need fixing. When he heard it, 3 sharp raps, steady and confident. He frowned, wiped his hands, and opened the door. Standing there was a man he hadn't seen in 10 years, Diego Cruz. Older, thicker in the shoulders, but still carrying that same steady fire in his eyes. The last time they'd spoken, it was in a hospital parking lot in Arizona, both of them swearing they'd leave that world behind. "Diego," Darius said slowly. "You look worse than me." Diego laughed, deep and warm. "That's what marriage does, brother." Then his smile faded. "Word gets around, you know. What they're doing to you out here. I had to see it for myself." Darius stepped aside. "Come in." Inside, the workshop was half lit, the air heavy with oil and quiet tension. Diego's gaze fell on the vest hanging on the hook. He nodded once. "Didn't think you still kept it." "Didn't think I'd need to," Darius replied. Diego leaned against the workbench. "They're testing you. They think you'll fold because you left the life behind. But you didn't leave who you are." "I'm not that man anymore," Darius said, the words steady but uncertain. Diego crossed his arms. "Peace doesn't mean hiding, Darius. It means standing tall without fear. You've been quiet too long. These people think silence means weakness." Darius looked away, jaw tight. "I tried peace. Look what it got me. A vandalized shop and a town waiting for me to snap." "Then don't snap," Diego said softly. "Lead. You used to lead men who feared nothing. You can lead them again, but this time for something that matters." Darius shook his head. "That world's gone, brother. Those men scattered." "Not all," Diego said with a faint smile. "Some of us grew up, started our own thing, helped veterans, kids, families like yours. You're not alone, even if they made you feel like it." Darius stared at him for a long moment, the words sinking in like a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "You think people here want my help?" Diego smiled wider. "Doesn't matter what they want. It matters what they need." That night, after Diego left, Darius sat on the porch watching the stars fade into morning. The idea wouldn't leave him. Maybe peace wasn't just about staying quiet. Maybe it was about standing tall enough to remind others they could, too. The next few weeks changed everything. Word spread that Darius was reopening the shop despite the suspension. On the morning of the grand reopening, the road outside was lined with bikes. Chrome, black, red, all colors and sizes. Veterans, old friends, and new riders from nearby cities rolled in. The air thundered with engines, not for intimidation, but unity. Maya stood in the doorway, nervous and proud all at once. "You sure about this?" she asked. Darius smiled faintly. "You said once I can't fight everyone." "I'm not trying to. I'm just reminding them I don't fight alone." By noon, the town couldn't ignore it. Dozens of people watched as Darius handed out tools to young bikers, laughing with them, teaching them. The shop became something more, a symbol of community, but Sheriff Briggs saw it differently. He drove by slow, window down, his eyes cold behind his sunglasses. Deputy Malone sat in the passenger seat, glancing nervously at the crowd. Briggs muttered, "You see that? Black man throwing a parade like he owns the place." Malone shifted. "Doesn't look like trouble, Sheriff." "Just folks," Briggs sneered. "Folks like that don't know their place. And a man like him, he's dangerous when people start listening." He pressed his foot to the gas, the tires spitting dust as the cruiser sped off. Later that week, Darius organized a charity ride for local veterans. Food donations, school supplies, the works. Even some of the townspeople who'd kept their distance came out to help. Standing in front of the crowd, Darius spoke, his voice calm but strong. "People like to think we're divided, by color, by past, by the patches we wear," he said. "But truth is, we all ride the same road. We just pick different directions. The trick isn't to avoid the bumps. It's to keep the throttle steady and the heart open. Don't let anyone decide your patch for you." The crowd erupted in applause. Even the mayor, who'd once refused to shake his hand, nodded with quiet respect. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Maya stood beside him while the last bikes rolled out. "You did good today," she said softly. He looked at her, a tired but peaceful smile tugging at his lips. "I just reminded them who they are." But the peace didn't last long. 2 nights later, as Darius closed the shop, a cruiser pulled up. Sheriff Briggs stepped out, face red and jaw tight. You think this little circus changes anything? He said. You think people forget who you are? You're a thug, Cole, always were. Darius didn't rise to it. He just looked him dead in the eye. You see what you want to see, Sheriff. That's your problem, Briggs smirked. No, my problem is you, and I'm gonna fix it. He got back in the car and drove off, his words hanging in the air like smoke. When Darius walked back inside, Maya was waiting, worry etched into her face. What did he want? To remind me he's still scared, Darius said. Scared? She asked. He nodded. Men like him don't hate because they're strong. They hate because they're terrified of losing control. Maya reached up, touching his face gently. Promise me something. What's that? When it comes, and whatever's coming, don't let anger choose for you. He held her hand against his cheek and whispered, I'll choose truth instead. Outside, the night wind picked up. Somewhere, distant thunder rolled across the plains. The storm had stopped brewing. It was on its way. The raid came without warning. Though in his bones, Darius had known it was coming. It was a Friday night, still. Heavy, the kind of quiet that presses down before something breaks. Maya was cleaning up inside the house while Jaden worked on a school project in the living room. Darius was at the shop, wiping down tools that didn't need cleaning, when he heard the low hum of engines approaching. Not one, several headlights cut through the dark. Police cruisers, 3 of them. He didn't move, didn't even flinch when the first door slammed shut and boots started crunching over gravel. He just wiped the last streak of oil from his wrench and laid it neatly on the counter. The front door burst open before he could speak. Police! A voice shouted, Hands where we can see 'em. Darius raised his hands slowly, eyes calm. Evening, Sheriff. Briggs stepped in, flanked by Deputy Malone and 4 other officers. His chest puffed, his smirk sharp as a blade. We've got a warrant, Cole. Got a tip there's drugs and illegal parts in this shop of yours. Guess you didn't clean up all that biker trash after all. Darius looked at him, voice quiet. You got a warrant, Sheriff? Or just another excuse? Briggs waved a folded paper in the air. Signed and sealed. Step aside. The officers began tearing through the shop, opening toolboxes, kicking over containers, ripping drawers from their hinges. One of them shoved a shelf, sending parts clattering to the floor. Darius didn't move. You break it, you fix it, he said evenly. Briggs sneered. Watch your mouth. Back at the house, Maya heard the noise. She looked out the window, saw the flashing lights, and froze. Jaden stood beside her, voice trembling. Mom, what are they doing? Stay here, she said, already grabbing her phone. But Jaden followed her out the door. I'm not staying. By the time they reached the shop, chaos had already spread. The officers were turning the place inside out, and Briggs was in Darius's face, yelling questions that weren't questions at all. Where's the stash, Cole? You think you can fool me? You think your little charity rides make you clean? Darius stood tall, hands still raised. You done? Briggs's face twisted. Done when I say I'm done. Maya's voice rang out behind them. You have no right. He's done nothing wrong. Briggs turned toward her, eyes cold. Ma'am, step back or you'll be detained too. Darius's tone changed. Lower now, controlled but edged with warning. Don't talk to her like that. Or what? Briggs spat, stepping closer. You gonna hit me, biker boy? Show your kid how real men act? Darius didn't move, didn't blink. No, he said softly. I'm gonna show him how real men endure. Something in Briggs's smirk faltered, but he recovered fast. Big words for a criminal. Jaden lifted his phone, recording everything. You're scared, he said, voice shaking but brave. That's why you came here like this. Briggs turned toward him, pointing. Put that down, boy. Darius stepped between them. He's not your boy. And he'll keep filming. The shop had fallen silent now, except for the faint crackle of the police radios. The officers shifted uneasily, unsure if they were still on the right side of things. Briggs leaned in, close enough that Darius could smell the sourness of his breath. You think that camera saves you? He hissed. Darius's voice was steady, almost too calm. No, Sheriff, but it saves you. He nodded toward the far corner and at a small, blinking red light. Briggs turned. Hidden near the ceiling was a camera, another over the door, another by the register. Maya crossed her arms, her trembling replaced by quiet triumph. He learned from the last time. Briggs's face went pale. "Turn those off," he barked to his men, but one of the younger officers hesitated. "Sir, they're cloud-connected." Darius's expression didn't change. "You just raided an innocent man's shop, Sheriff, and the whole world's watching." Briggs's hand twitched toward his belt, but he caught himself. Outside, the sound of motorcycles grew louder. Dozens of them. The riders rolled in from the highway, engines growling like thunder. Veterans, reformed bikers, friends. Diego Cruz at the front. They didn't draw weapons. They didn't yell. They just parked in a line and stood there, silent, unified, watching. Briggs turned back to Darius, his bravado crumbling under the weight of his own reflection. "You planned this," he said. Darius shook his head. "No, you did." Then he looked directly into one of the cameras, his voice steady and deliberate. "This is what law looks like when it forgets justice. You can break my doors, but not the truth." Briggs opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The footage hit the internet before dawn. Within hours, it spread across the country, shared by bikers, veterans, and civil rights groups. The headline read, "Black Veteran and Former Hell's Angel Targeted in Police Raid." By afternoon, the mayor's office was flooded with calls. The state attorney announced an investigation. Reporters filled the town square. When Darius stepped outside the next morning, the air was different, lighter but charged. Briggs was gone, placed on administrative leave pending inquiry. Deputy Malone avoided Darius's gaze when their paths crossed. The same neighbors who once looked away now stopped to shake his hand. Later that day, Briggs showed up one last time. No badge, no smirk, just a man stripped of the armor that made him dangerous. "You think you won?" he asked quietly. Darius looked at him, calm and unflinching. "Winning isn't the point. Living with dignity is." Briggs laughed bitterly. "You made me the villain." "No," Darius said softly. "You made yourself visible." Briggs stared at him for a moment longer, then turned and walked away. Jaden stood beside his father, watching the sheriff disappear down the road. "You didn't hit him," he said. Darius put a hand on his son's shoulder. "That's not how you win." He looked toward the horizon, the afternoon light reflecting off the row of bikes parked outside his shop. "The loudest man in the room," he said quietly, "is always the weakest one there." And for the first time in a long time, peace didn't feel like surrender. It felt like strength. Months passed. The dust that once hung over the town began to clear. Not just the physical kind, but the kind that blinds people to their own conscience. The raid had left more than broken shelves and scattered tools. It had cracked something deeper, something that could no longer be ignored. The town changed in small ways first. The same people who used to cross the street when they saw Darius now nodded when he passed. Some still avoided his eyes, but others stopped by the shop to talk. Awkwardly at first, but genuinely. "Didn't know what really happened," one man muttered one day, turning a wrench nervously in his hands. Darius just nodded. "Now you do." The shop came back to life. Bikes filled the bays again, and the air smelled of oil, sweat, and possibility. Diego stayed on for a while, helping rebuild what had been torn apart. Together, they hosted free repair days for veterans, taught local kids how to work on engines, and raised money for community projects. And every evening, as the sun dipped behind the distant hills, Maya would light a lantern outside the shop. Her quiet ritual, her way of saying, "We're still here." Jaden had changed too. The fear in his eyes had been replaced by purpose. He started a program at the local youth center called The Road Forward, a mentorship space for teens who felt unseen or unheard. "Dad taught me something," he told the small crowd at the opening event. "You can't fight hate with fists. You fight it by refusing to be what they expect you to be." The applause that followed was small but powerful, a sound that carried hope. Darius watched from the back, arms crossed, heart swelling in ways he couldn't quite describe. Later that night, he told Maya, "He's stronger than I ever was at his age." She smiled. "Because you let him see who you really are. Not the fighter, but the man who knows when not to fight." He chuckled softly. "You sure about that?" "Some days I still want to break something." She leaned in, resting her head on his shoulder. "Then build instead." One afternoon, the mayor invited Darius to a community meeting. It wasn't a formal apology, those rarely come clean, but it was a step. They discussed policy changes, accountability reviews, and bias training. The sheriff's office was under new leadership now. Malone had resigned, and Briggs had disappeared from public view. When Darius was asked to speak, he stood slowly, his presence commanding the room without effort. "I don't need an apology," he began. "What I want is understanding. I want my son to walk down the same street I do, and not wonder if today's the day someone decides he looks suspicious. You can't write laws that change hearts, but you can lead with truth until hearts catch up." The room was silent for a long time, and then someone began to clap. Weeks later, Darius reopened the garage's back room as something new, the Reed Foundation for Youth and Justice, named after a veteran friend who'd once told him, "Peace isn't silence, it's equality." The walls were painted white, with a single framed leather vest mounted in the center. The faded wings of the Hells Angels patch stared out like a relic of a past conquered, not celebrated. Beneath it, a small metal plaque read, "Freedom isn't where you ride, it's who you choose to be." Every morning, Darius stood before it for a moment, not as a memory of who he was, but as a promise of what he'd become. One early dawn, he rolled his rebuilt Harley out of the garage. The road was quiet, the sky a blend of gold and violet. Maya stepped outside, wrapping her arms around herself against the chill. "Going somewhere?" she asked. He smiled. "Just a ride. Haven't seen the sunrise from the highway in a while." She nodded. "Don't be long." He leaned down, kissed her forehead, then slipped on his helmet. The engine rumbled to life, deep, steady, alive. As he pulled out onto the open road, the wind met him like an old friend. The town faded behind him. The same streets that once held suspicion now whispered of something new. Respect. His voice carried softly in narration as he rode. "They thought my power lived in the patch I wore. But it never did. It lived in knowing when not to fight and when to stand. They tried to take everything from me, but all they did was remind me who I am." He accelerated, the horizon stretching wide and endless ahead. The sky was brighter now, and the weight he once carried had become something lighter, not gone, but transformed. Behind him, the lantern outside the shop flickered in the wind, still burning, and for the first time in a long while, Darius Cole, the man they once feared, the man they tried to break, was finally free.